Happy not so happy Monday, if there's a such thing as a happy Monday. Hello, welcome to the Sci-Fi Center live. This is we I was planning on doing a broadcast, but we didn't know what we are going to be talking about, so it's pretty much still going to be an open mic. Obviously, a lot of us woke up to the news of uh Jason David Frank passing away, or to most of us, I mean, especially to me, even though I wasn't a kid in the 90s. I mean, I was 20 when Power Rangers hit the air, but that show was not just marketed to kids of that era. That show, I remember I opened a year later and we were still selling Power Ranger stuff to grown ass people in their late 20s and 30s that did not have kids. Sorry about that. StreamYards, boy, you're gonna get me sick. Um, the demographic for the Power Rangers, silly as it and corny as it was, even for its time, still affected. We were still in that demo, so he was not unknown to me. And from what I can understand, he was generally a nice guy. I was reading stories today about how he would go around, especially during the pandemic, where trust me, comic book stores were hurting. I mean, for obvious reasons, we all business was hurting, but comic books, even post pandemic, because of the disposable income issue, this guy would go around and he would visit comic book stores. I don't. You guys can correct me, but I don't think he really charged them a lot, if anything, for those of them who could get him out there. And like I said, his appearances would literally save comic book stores, and he did a lot of them. Um, you just never know what people are going through. Now, I'm not going to get into his cause of death because even though I know it has been insinuated, and I'm going to bring up the suicide hotline, there's been no definitive announcement from his family. All we have is sources close to, and you know how I feel about that. Even though if it is true or not, until they have announced it, if they ever do, it's still new. I mean, I woke up to this. I wake up late, so I'm getting this information on Sunday around 10 a.m. or so. So out of respect for, not just his family, but people that are grieving, I am not going to say, even though we probably know what would happen, but you just don't know what people are going through. And these let's go ahead, for argument's sake, confirm that it was suicide. These suicides are starting to take a mental toll, even if it's not somebody if it's not somebody in your family or in your immediate circle. you're I think it's even more shocking when it's a celebrity, because at least with family members and something like that, there's a chance you could see signs. But if it's somebody displaced, somebody a celebrity, like I said, Anthony Bourdain was one that really punched me right in the nuts. I remember waking up or being watching the news just before I went to bed, and because I do late stuff, so I was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was watching MSNBC, and they broke it. They stopped what they were purporting, and they announced that, and it was like it was a gut punch. And then you mash that up with the people that I've known personally, the people, coworkers I've known, fellow soldiers who, we went through suicide prevention classes just so we could recognize signs and maybe get to somebody help. But each one of these just gets harder and harder. And at 49, 49, I mean, you know, you would think that's a good age to be 49. You got your kids, you got your family, you got a career, but you just get reminded that we're all outsiders to these people's pain. So one of the things I really wanted to do before I got to the chat is listen. The Enosh has 11,000 followers. Not all of them watch me, of course, but in the event that you come across this show or any show that I do, because I'm going to make this a normal thing, and I'm going to start posting the link in some of our better planned streams. Is uh, Suicide Prevention Lifeline. A lot of us became fans of Poindexter Lounge and associated channels because of fandom for Zack Snyder. We all know what he went through with his daughter, and we all know that the cause is something that most of us were supporting no matter what. But it's a much more broader issue. It's a much more broader, and it's not just supporting someone who's lost somebody. Some of the people that are watching this show right now may be going through stuff, and I don't know. Most of you I'll never meet, and I am in no way, shape, or form qualified to counsel you on anything. Even with my training, which is our training is basically to recognize the signs from the people around us and the soldiers that are under our command or under our leadership and get them the help they need. So however many people are watching this, it's as easy as dialing 988. A lot of times you have to dial a 1-800 number, and the good ones would have somebody there for you. And a lot of times they wouldn't be the one, but they were the one to take the call, and they would get somebody on the third party call to hand you off to that person. From what I understand, because I know some people who've used this line, it's a lot easier. They've streamlined the process. If you're going through some stuff, it's three numbers. It's three numbers. The worst you could do is have somebody try to at least get you some help. It just, if you're at the bottom and if you're on your last leg, what's 3 more seconds to try to get some help going to do? This is, to me, the easiest way to spread out to a lot of people. And like I said, I'm going to start putting the link in my permanent links on both my channel and everything I do here, because it's not just about an event of a person like this whole thing. And if in fact this is, what ended his life, it's not just about this one guy. I mean, we keep coming back to this over and over again. Chris Cornell. I mean, you can go throughout your lifetime, and I think the biggest problem is that we only talk about it when it's events, when somebody does it. And I think we could probably, and I know I damn sure could, do a better job of keeping these issues out there so that we're not just hopping from one tragedy to another. An interim in between, somebody somewhere can not become one of these people. And if it's just as easy, if I can spread this number around and, write it down or just remember it. And that's the one thing. It's easy. 988, just like 911 is the easiest thing to remember. 988 for somebody who may need help. And hopefully this increases your chances, increases your odds of getting talked off of that ledge. I mean, like I said, I don't know the issues that trigger this. I know when it comes to fellow soldiers, when it comes to trigger it, but there's also things that trigger people. There's things that people are going through, and I would recommend, if any of you guys have the time, to seek out, and they're free. I know they're free here in Vegas, to take a suicide prevention class, watch a video, do something, anything that you can, because it may be one of these signs that you notice just being an amateur. Like I said, none of us are going to be qualified to treat this person. But if it's somebody around you and you see a change, you see a drop, you see some differences, that's where you might want to use these little tools like 988 suicide prevention hotline. Even if it's not you getting them, you get the advice from them, to what to do. That's another thing we were trained to do, because it's not always a person that's considering this that comes to you or that you find out about. It's somebody in between that is worried and they don't know what to do next. And then that's where we give them the numbers. We start asking questions, and then all the while we're connecting them to a professional or somebody who's been through it and are been, had the tendencies or maybe survived an attempt. There's people out there. So it's tragic to hear about this, but it's always tragic to hear about this. I mean, people cutting their lives short. I mean, and we think they have it all, but everybody you pass through is going through something. A lot of the people that are in these chats and on these YouTube streams are going through something at different levels, of course. Some people can cope with things better, but not everybody can, and there's nothing wrong. Hey, listen, the hardest thing I had to tell somebody when I was in my reserve unit, because a lot of it was reservists coming back and integrating back into normal society. You're not a pussy for going to get help. All right, you are not some coward. There is no weakness if you don't feel right. There is nothing demasculating you about going and saying, "Hey, I need to get this fixed." And that's the biggest stigma from guys that I know that are going through depression and going through everything else, is even at the depression stage, they think that they're defective and that they can't go get help. No, dude. And every time I see an athlete or on an interview or on a news show or anything like that speak openly about these mental health issues, I applaud that person, because that person is reaching millions of people and he's letting those people know that, hey, it's okay to go get help. I mean, I would rather them take that in consideration than take their lives. Today was a bad day, but once again, I unfortunately, we know this won't be the last time we have this, this kind of happen, whether it be a celebrity or somebody around us. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna permanently put this number on my website, on my, it'll be one of the pinned things on our Instagram, and signage in the store, because, like I said, it's, it doesn't have to end this way. It really doesn't have to end this way. So, and that's, like I said, that is with the qualifying caveat that was indeed the case with Jason. Like I said, and until we get something official, I know certain outlets have purported it, but you know how I feel about certain outlets, and the topic is too serious to assume. However, if that's the case, then there's your numbers, there's your links, and like I said, I will make them more available. All right, I'm sorry to start this open mic on such a somber note, but if I don't have a lot of followers or whatever, but at the same time, the handful of you that watch, this is for you to maybe start a conversation that extends somebody's life. Who knows? I mean, like I said, it doesn't cost me anything to care for the first 15 minutes of this stream. So, all right. So once again, I will put that in the descriptions and everything else, but I think it's easy enough for you guys to remember. So I'll go ahead and take that off, and let's go say hi to the chat, because, like I said, I know you guys didn't come here to be brought down. I try to whatever time I give you, and this is going to be about a 30-minute one. Whatever time I do try to get on here, I try to bring you things that are positive and uplifting. But I would be remiss if I went on and did a stream without even mentioning that. And once again, this is not the first and not the last time. So, all right, guys. Hey, Anthony, how are you doing? Bob Riker, yeah, Bob Riker's back at Disney. Wow, I thought Chapek would get at least 5 years, but turns out that no. I mean, it's just not going well. Poor Bob Iger. I mean, he keeps going into retirement, and it's like the mob. He keeps getting drugged back in. But this time, it seems like they have a plan to take 2 years to get the right person. And it is, you look at Disney's numbers, and remember, people think that Disney and Marvel make the majority of their money with these movies just because some of them make $1 billion. That is absolutely not true. Disney, the totality of Marvel movies, I don't think approaches with an annual Disney year that Disney parks pulls in 37, 38 billion a year. If you combine all the MCU movies, that includes the ones that have made $1 billion. If you include all of those and stack them on top of each other, I don't believe that they make up as much as like one calendar year of Disney parks does. And once the parks start, he did some things with the parks that people were pissing people off. There's a lot of people I know that aren't going back to the parks because of the whole situation that's there. So when the thing that built you, or a thing that's been is the main part of your engine, starts faltering, I think that's where they had to make a decision. But I was surprised to hear about it in the middle of a Sunday night while I'm watching football. But I'm like, and then a lot of people are rejoicing. I'm like, listen, I don't know Bob Shakespeare from Adam, but and I don't. He's gonna get a golden parachute. I mean, we're not gonna be clipping coupons for Chapek. I mean, I think he's going to be okay. And he came in a really bad situation. He came in right before the pandemic, so he made some decisions though that didn't help himself. So, yeah, goodbye, Chapek, and hello again, Iger. One of these guys. What is he, like 70 something? Not 70. I know he was in retirement twice, right? I mean, like he's literally like a mafia don. Hey, Anthony from down under. Yeah. Yeah, everybody. Yeah, sad day. Rest in peace. Yeah, definitely. All right. Yep. Hey, Aaron. Yeah, very, very heartbreaking. As a 90s kid, it's soul destroying to be losing a person like you. Yeah, and like I said, from everything I have ever heard about him, is that this guy was one of the great guys that you could just meet. I all my Instagram and friends that were able to go out to a lot of conventions that were out here in LA. All of a sudden, there's all these pictures are flooding with them and him in all various stages of his career. I mean, if Power Rangers was, I know there's been different variations of it, but I can't say who would be more representative of the Power Rangers lore than him. And like I said, there's been many, but his connection to it literally spanned 3 different decades: the 90s, the 2000s, and 2000. Actually, 4, because I think he did some stuff in 2020. So he was Power Rangers is big. I mean, you could have varying degrees of what you think about, some of the other stuff that they've done. Once you move along from the mid 90s series, but Power Rangers is an iconic franchise, an iconic international franchise, and he arguably is the most recognizable name in that franchise. And his presence crossed generations, because those 90s kids, most of those guys, he was a Generation X like myself. And believe it or not, a lot of the people that watched Power Rangers, a good half of them, were the lower end of Generation X like myself. I came in just at the difference. I was born in 74, and then your millennials are born like 4 or 5 years later. So I'm closer to a millennial in numbers wise. So that demographic, we all watched him. We were watching him. I bought the little Green Ranger, and I bought his White Ranger. I was working at Walmart when they first introduced the Green Ranger, and I was working in receiving, and every time we rolled out the cart and the pallets that had all the toys on them, Power Rangers had a very distinct packaging, and they would get us, man. They would get us, and they were all wearing that Green Dragon shirt, and Power Rangers was big in the mid 90s. Power Rangers and Hot Wheels. Power Rangers are still big now with some people, but this was Power Rangers got its rise before the 90s, when and it was a daily TV show. It aired here at 4:30 in the afternoon. I was working 2 jobs, and I would watch it in between those 2 jobs. And so yeah, I have some of the figures. Not a hardcore fan like some of the other people I know, but I was a fan. And like I said, it was like, it wasn't just 90s kids, because there was some 90s grown ass men that were buying them. Say band toys, that stuff was collectible. So, and I remember the big deal about when he first came out, because he was that era's version of a MILF magnet. He was, women loved him, and they used his attraction to gain more fans. And I remember when he became the White Ranger. I remember the big mystery about the White Ranger. If you guys were old enough to be watching it then, when nobody knew who the White Ranger was, and they were advertising a toy for the White Ranger and a tiger and everything else. And then that episode where they revealed it, we didn't have the internet like that back then. So just imagine how that kind of reveal would have been like today. So I understand completely the impact of his passing. Some of these other guys who passed, they're just names to me, even though I grieve for them as well, because it's still a tragedy. But this one, like I said, the ones like this, ones like Chris Cornell, Kurt Cobain when he died, Robin Williams, these are ones that are in my peripheral. They're either right in front of me or they're my peripheral, and he was one of them. So all you 90s kids, you've had a bad millennials and lower generation Gen X guys, you've had a bad 12 days, man. Kevin Conroy, and now this, but there's happiness in between there. So I hope we don't go into a spiral. You know what I mean? You know. All right, Anthony Mazzano, William. According to Hollywood Reporter and Fox Business, the reason why Iger is back at Disney is because the big stockholders went to the board and asked him to fire Bob Page. Yeah, and like I said, with the $38 billion of park revenue, if that falters, like I said, the movies can falter. Like I said, us, fans are, we think that, especially if you don't go to Disneyland or Disney World, you think that Disney and Marvel, that's how they make their money. No, the parks is how they make their money. And there's been a lot of pissed off people. I remember, I don't bring up other YouTubers unless they're on my show, but John Campia went to one of his epic and hilarious rants. And this is a guy who had all the season passes and paid big bucks, went to the Star Wars thing, got his, the lightsaber. He has the green to be able to do it that way. And he got so pissed off that, he literally says, fuck Disney. I mean, and when you got a guy like that who has hundreds and thousands, literally 300,000 followers and has, millions of, views, spreading that kind of bad will. And he wasn't the only one. There's a lot of people who are just, the park experience was ruined. And when that decreases, then the stockholders do what they needed to do. I mean, it sucks for him, I think. I mean, he made some decisions that didn't make it easy on him. But at the same time, he also came in at a very bad time. But he could have done things differently. And like I said, I'm not surprised that they fired him. I'm surprised they fired him this soon. But like I said, you'll probably hear that park revenue feedback and that revenue is going down. And they're like, nope, that's our bread and butter. You start messing with our bread and butter, you got to go. And so they drug Iger out of retirement again, or whatever he was in, to get it right this time, to get the right person to run it. And it's not an easy thing to run. So I doubt he'll be there for more than a year. I think he'll find somebody. But yeah, the stockholders are like watching their stock go, and Disney losing, what was it, $3 billion or something? Everybody's hemorrhaging money right now, but it's where you hemorrhage the money is what the issue. If they were hemorrhaging money in the movies, they can make adjustments to that. They can just not make so many movies. But when they're hemorrhaging in a $38 billion, if say for instance, you instead of $38 billion, you only make 34, that's a problem. So yeah, shocking to hear, but not surprised. Just surprised that it happened this soon. All right, for me it was Eddie Guerrero. Yeah, you know what? And so Eddie Guerrero died. He had cardiac issues, and I don't think I have to explain to you guys what a hardcore, just absolute degenerate wrestling fan I am. I mean, I've lost sleep and days of sleep because I watch so much wrestling, and I watch it in areas that are different time zones. So I am a hardcore, and I grew up. I mean, I know of Eddie Guerrero's career long before WWE, when he was doing Lucha Libre. I mean, Eddie Guerrero is an icon. He died at 38 years old, but he also hold on. The thing that made it hard with Eddie Guerrero is he was part of a trend of wrestlers that were dying from a lot of reasons that were caused by the business. A lot of those guys were dying young. I mean, even during their careers, because of the way WWE and a lot of other wrestling federations too, to be fair, but primarily them. Because remember, when he died, it was a monopoly. If you lost your job or couldn't work through injury or health, you just got pushed to the back, and there was no union, there was no health plan, there was no nothing. So a lot of these guys in the mid 2000s did things. I mean, throughout the 80s, but a lot worse in the mid 2000s to stay in the ring. Eddie Guerrero was one of those guys. A lot of what happened to Eddie Guerrero was because of painkillers and things like that. A lot of what happened to Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit, the damage done to his brain. I don't excuse with him murdering his family and doing all that stuff, but when they took apart his brain, there were so many dead spots in his brain, concussion to his brain, that he never got medical clearance for, or medical attention for. If that were to happen today, I mean, because of the lawsuits and everything else, they would pull him and they wouldn't bring him back. It would be years before he came back. But you had a slew of wrestlers who were either committing suicide or dying of health issues, as they got older. And that hurt, because it was like I look at a lot of the people that I grew up watching. I watch old wrestling videos, and I'll literally be watching a video where everyone in this video is dead. You know, I watched a video with the Hart Foundation versus the British Bulldogs. Only one of those 4 men are alive today, and that's Bret Hart. I watched a video with the Road Warriors versus the Varsity Club, Steve Williams and Mike Rotunda. 3 of the 4 of those men are dead. None of them made it to 60. So it hurts because something you watch growing up, you don't see the other side of what people are going through to keep themselves up. You know, those painkillers, you know, doing the damage to their heart, doing the damage to their brain, the concussions, everything else. I mean, it all adds up. Eddie Guerrero was only 38 years old. Chris Benoit just turned 40. You know, the Road Warriors, none of the Road Warriors made it to 60, if I'm correct. Davey Boy Smith, I mean, was in, you know, a lot of those guys ended up in wheelchairs before they died. So yeah, Eddie Guerrero was. I think Eddie Guerrero was a big shock to a lot of the people who didn't, you know, who didn't understand what these guys go through to stay in the ring or stay in the ring in that era. That was a dark day. All right, R.I.P. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I don't mind if you guys, you know, keep saying it. I mean, you know, a lot of times I don't consider it spamming. It's just I understand because I'm getting in it. All right, with the issues that there's still a stigma, especially with men getting help with mental illness. If we do, we're looked at as weak of doing it, and I 100% agree with that, and that's why I don't mind, you know, bringing that up. I don't mind putting the number out there, and like I said, you're talking about macho men soldiers who you know, we are told to be tough. We're told to be strong, especially if you're in a leadership position. You're supposed to be strong for everybody, top to bottom, you know, but you need to be told that it's all part of a machine. And if you are not mentally well, you are a danger to the people around you. You know what? How can you look out for them? How can you look out for them and if you won't go get help? We would do, you know, we would do whole things where we would say, hey, you know what? You guys don't want to, you know, you guys don't want to publicly say anything about your mental health. That's fine. I completely understand that. I'll go ahead and just put a written order for it. So my entire squad or my entire section, everybody's going to talk to the professional. Everybody, including myself, and everything you guys say, it's off the books. You know, if you are having an issue and you want to tell him, um, and it can be confidential. You know, unless there's some immediate danger or something like that, or they think, you know, obviously we're putting a weapon in your hand, so we need to know that you're mentally okay. But we're not going to find that. We're not going to take that first step if we don't ask. So we made it anonymous. But if I saw the signs, you know, and like I said, I'm a weirdo. I'll be scrolling through some of my pages sometimes. I'm on Facebook a lot because you know, I communicate a lot of people I do business with. I deal with them, and I deal with them at odd hours of the night because some people are on the other side, you know, the planet, on the side of the nation. So I'm typing, I'm chatting, and every now and then somebody will type something. I'll just give you an example. One of my friends that we do business with was in one of our Rocky Horror casts, and they started just typing stuff like, "I want to end it." You know, is anybody out there? I bet you nobody is gonna even call. Nobody's gonna miss stuff like that. So listen, I'm paranoid when it comes to things like that. You start saying shit like that, I start thinking you're going to do shit like that. So I go in there and his number's there. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I call him. And I didn't hesitate. I would rather that person scream to me like, "What the hell are you doing? You psycho calling me at 4 o'clock in the morning. What's the hell wrong with you?" I would rather that person be mad at that and then I hang up knowing that everything was okay, than never make that call. And then 3 hours later, I'm waking up and hearing some awful news. And I've done that several times. I'll call them. You type this at 2:25 in the morning. Guess what's going to happen at 2:27 in the morning if I have your number? Or I would use the little Facebook thing where you can call people because I know you're on Facebook. So guess what? You're going to get a ring from Crazy William wondering if you're okay. And I didn't need to know him that well or nothing. All I needed to see is that stuff rolling down my screen, and I'm like, "Oh shit!" And I'd call him. You know, I'd be like, "Hey, what's up? Well, I saw you type that, so that's my probable cause. Is you typed that for a reason, and you typed that on a format, and you were wondering if you watching. Okay, I watched. So what's up?" And then I say, hey, I start giving them the numbers. I mean, before we had 988 and a lot of things. I have a card that I used to carry, and you could give it. It was for the Army, but civilians, they would take civilians too, and I'd give them that number, and I would connect. I would wait till I got somebody on the line, and then I would get off because with their stuff, stuff like that. Like I said, I'm a weirdo that way. I'm not saying that's necessarily what you guys need to do, but if you see something like that, people don't, when people are reaching out like that, throwing that lifeline out there, respond. I mean, if you see somebody making those kind of comments, hey, what's up? How are you? Are you okay? You know what? Sometimes it's just people getting that zone where they think that nobody sees what they're going through, and they've internalized it, so they kind of made it harder. But once they don't internalize it, once they start saying and they start showing those signs, be quick to jump on it. You may not have a lot of time, and these professionals are up 24 hours a day. I very rarely I talk, some of them are friends of mine. We all went through the same classes, same training together, and it's just, we know the signs. We're looking at those signs. We're looking at that mood change. We're looking at that sudden drop. We're looking at what happened to you around. Did you lose somebody? Divorces. There's all sorts of steps and crises that they show you, and behavior that's associated with those crises. And like I said, you start looking at people in a different way, and you start wondering, hey, you start paying a closer eye, and like I said, better to take action to try to kick that person connected, than to be, wow, I didn't see that coming afterwards. Wow, I wish I could have done something afterwards. Sometimes you don't get a second shot at this stuff. So none of us, unless you guys are, professionals in the group, who knows, but the most important thing you can do, is acknowledge that person, and then make the bridge between them and a professional that can get them back. A lot of people recover from it. I talk to people years later that are like, dude, I can't believe I was going through that then, and I'm glad that 5-6 later we can sit back and be like, wow, dude, what was wrong with you then? But we can joke about it. We can be like, what, because the most important thing you have to do is let people know that where they're at is not the end. But like I said, there are better people. People, when you call those hotlines, they are the people that can reel them back in. So that's why I put that number out there. But yeah, the tough guy syndrome. I think that society in general needs to help out with this and let people know that it's okay. When your plumbing is bad, you call a plumber. If you're not a mechanic and your car's not running right, you call in a professional to fix it. There's nothing wrong with calling for help. Nothing wrong with calling for help. I hope that stigma, like I said, and that's why I brought up the athletes and the performers and the public figures and the guys who are the big macho personas. Every time that they come out and they say something about this, I swear there's probably saving thousands of lives, because somebody's sitting there and this big bruising wrestler or football player or rock star is saying, hey, I went and got help. And these are people that they look up to. These are people that they admire. And if they're saying it's okay, then, that creates an opening. I hope more people come out and do it. I hope the people who've come out on the other side of this reach out and say, hey, dude, I was there and I'm not there anymore. Let me bring you to where I'm at. So yeah, the stigma is there. I wish we could do more to make it go away. Yeah, in Australian, it's the lifeline at 13 11 14. So obviously, Enosh has built a following in Australia, because we have you, we have Draga, and we have Anthony. I mean, Grisby. So we have people all over the world. This isn't just an American thing, by the way. I'm going to see if I can get somebody to help me put together like all the ones that that I know we reach, either on my show or on our channel or his channel. Because we have people all over the world, and suicide is not an American thing; it's a world thing. So yeah, it's just heartbreaking, man. It's heartbreaking, but I just hope we can start having these conversations before we have something like this happen, instead of RIP for that reason. So I will throw it out, and it's the holidays too, guys. Holidays are tough. Holidays are a benchmarking. Have those antenna out. Have those antenna out. Have that 988 number ready, or be watching for those guys. Holidays are tough, especially if you've gone through a divorce or you've lost somebody or something is a dramatic shift, and that was there at one time is not there this time around, because now that person is being reminded of what is not there with them. So you got to watch out. That's why, you know what, if I got, I used to know guys when I first got back from basic training, and when I first got back from deployment, I would, you know, I have a tradition to where every Thanksgiving I'm at the Sci-Fi Center. I do eat, dinner with my family. We do go home and we do all that, but I make it a point every major holiday, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, to be at the Sci-Fi Center. It's a mental thing with me, reminding myself that I'm still open and that it's not guaranteed and that it's not easy. And those are benchmarks for me. But I always tell people, going through stuff, come down and hang out with us, with me. I'm not come down, let's be losers together if you think you're a loser. Let's throw on some Star Trek. I mean, let's order a pizza. I'm gonna be here all day until I go home and eat turkey, but that's gonna be later on in the day. But you don't sit around and mope about the wife that ain't there or the loved one that passed away. Come down to the center. Got a giant movie screen. Let's watch some crazy shit. Anything to not have them sitting and dwelling on that. New Year's Eve, we have a marathon where we just do, we do horror movies all night long. And instead of people sitting around who are going through issues or are lonely, sitting around commiserating about, what a horrible year it was, come watch some crazy stuff with us. Come watch Blackula with us. Come be with people. So that, that's not the case. And if you have people like that, hey, maybe an invite to Thanksgiving dinner. I'm not saying do that, but if you see people that are like that, and invite them into your circles if you can, if it's applicable. I have a retail location. I have a place to sit and gather and watch movies and do stuff. So, I use that. So yeah, this is there's a lot of stuff we can do. There's a lot of stuff to, but bringing it up to the forefront so that more people are talking about it, so more people don't think it's a weakness to talk about it. All right, so William, you're bringing me through a tough time right now. I was just talking to one of my friends recently, and he just told me, let's see, that one our friend in the military just recently got killed in a roadside attack while he was in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, man, and then it's unfortunately with the military, it comes from all around you, and it doesn't. And the surprising thing that I found out in the Army, because I was at battalion level, I wasn't the guy kicking down the doors. I wasn't the gung ho guy you see in Hollywood. I was in operations. But just being 10,000 miles away from your home and your family while issues are going on, especially if you were a reservist, if you were military, if you were full time, a lot of it still hurts, but a lot of your situation you were dealing with a lot before, but now your coping mechanisms are literally there a little bit better, but you still, we still look out for them too. But it was a reservist who was leaving a situation, being plucked from the situation, having to adapt. No matter how hard you train, it's still depressing, especially for a lot of us that were cross-leveled. And cross-leveled means that you were taken from another unit because another new unit needed your expertise. So a lot of us reservists we didn't even have our units. We didn't even mobilize with our units. We were going over. I got plucked and pulled over to a transportation unit after they had already mobilized and got to Fort Lewis. They had already spent a month or so bonding, and here I come, and amidst all this chaos, and it was wearing. But and it's so all levels of the military, you're dealing with that stuff. And then you have the guys who are kicking the doors down, who are losing their buddies. And then you have the sense of guilt. You have all that stuff. And then a lot of them would come back and would commit suicide. The suicide rate amongst combat veterans and people who have served is I don't know if tragic. Tragic's not a strong enough word. It's devastating. There's two things I think America in general needs to do a lot better job when it comes to vets. There should be no homeless vets, first of all. I got people buying $billion platforms and spending money on some of the dumbest shit that I've ever seen. And I got vets out here in the cold, the one percenters out there in the cold. That's one thing I think that is unacceptable. But the way the lack of help sometimes that when it comes to mental health that vets come back to, the VA is doing all it can. But remember, we fought 2 wars for nearly 2 decades. There's a lot of wounded people mentally and physically out there, and sometimes the VA is stretched to the brink. So it's a bad situation sometimes, but yeah, I know a lot of guys. I know a lot of guys that that situation applies to, and it sucks. You make it through all that shit, and then you were trained to survive. You were trained to make it home alive. You're trained to make sure that everybody around you do the best job to bring them home. And then we get them home, and then they fall prey to things like this, where nobody's out there to be like, "Hey, dude, what's up?" It sucks. How you doing, Vince? What do they say to God of? Yeah, not today. A Game of Thrones reference, man. Game of Thrones reference. I wish everybody was Arya. All right, William, what did Chapek do wrong? That's a lot. A lot of it, he drove down the morale of the company. He instituted some changes. I don't have the specifics in front of me, but I would hear about them every single day because it got bad. If you He changed a lot of the pricing tiers. He changed how you got into the park and how the structure and the rules and what was available, and a lot of the price structure and event structure changed, and a lot of people didn't like it. And then there were things like the Scarlett Johansson thing, to where that got ugly, and under Iger, it would have never got that way. There's just a lot of things that he did, but the main thing that the shareholders, I think, could not could not let fly was the parks. Once people started having bad experiences at parks, and then park revenue started to go down, that is the backbone of Disney. That is 38 billion. That is where they make their money. So when he started fucking with that dog dish, they're like, "Oh no, no, you got to go. Even if we don't have anybody immediate to replace you, we are going to dig up. We're going to dig up Iger, and we're going to prop him back up. Hitting 80, and we're going to make sure that And a lot of that is this. People hear Bob Iger, they they think a lot of good things when it comes to stability, and stockholders need stability. So yeah, he did a lot. He made a lot of missteps. And it got to the point where it got to the main course of the meal, which is the parks, and that's what happened. Marcus Cruz question: have you seen Avengers King Dynasty plot leak? Shane, Chris Rings, and Miss Marvel's Bangle are from King's. Dude, there's a lot here. All right, Chris. Okay. No, I have not. To answer the question, no, I have not. I don't think that as much of that is set in stone as a lot of people may say it is. I think King himself is a much more complicated character than this plot thing would reflect. I think that there's a much more, and they're gonna have to do a really good job in explaining Kang, Immortus, Ramatut, all these things, because I think they're going to use Kang and all of his personas and all of his representations to bring about a lot of stuff for these next couple of phases. So they got to do a real, he's a very confusing character if you're not familiar with him. He was confusing in the only appearance that he's had so far, which was the season finale of Loki. Now we're getting into quantum this and quantum that, so they gotta make sure that for the kids in the back that they get this right. But I don't think this plot that you're putting out, even if it's been leaked, I don't think it's what's going to actually happen, simply because there's just too much of a complex. His ring and Miss Marvel, Marvel's that could all be connected, but there's just not a lot there to really be overwhelmed or underwhelmed about. To be honest with you, it's just not enough there. I think we're going to see a lot of cool stuff with King. That's actually the stuff with MCU I'm looking forward to, because I grew up loving King when he was done right. Scarlet Centurion, all these things that he represents is cool. So I haven't seen that leak, and I don't know if that leak is going to be relevant. And plus, even if it's an exact leak, remember, stuff changes. We're in the way pre-production. We're not even close to pre-production when it comes to Kane Dynasty. So there's a lot that could change. So, all right, Carol, Sam, Deadpool, Loki, Reed are all Illuminati or 616 in the MCU. Yeah, that's also going to be interesting to see how this all comes together. How they bring in the Fantastic Four. I don't think they're going to be bringing in the X-Men for years down the line, nor should they, given the logical steps in the story that they're trying to tell. So Anthony Grismy, our friend Saggy posted a photo with him. Yeah, we talked about Jason Smith. Yeah, there's a lot of people. If I could get on my Instagram right now, I probably could, but I could just go through and see people. He was that kind of guy, and he was always that kind of guy, from what I can understand. You see him as he's growing over all of the years, all the tattoos he's getting. He's always in some kind of convention. He's always giving somebody a hug. He's always signing an autograph. And from what I heard, he wasn't very expensive to bring out, and that's what made it cool because, like I said, he would do that during the pandemic when, like, a lot of us were barely holding on, and that stuff makes a difference. Being able to get a guy down there and get some people in your store, that kind of stuff makes a huge difference. That could mean the difference, believe it or not, between you staying in business and going out of business. So he propped up a lot of stores that way. 1984 for me. I grew up with the Power Rangers. Yeah, so you're 10. You're literally a millennial. So you would have been 7 or you would have been 9 or 10 years old, right around. I was, like I said, we were who they were aiming for. They were aiming for you, and they were aiming for me. And be honest with you, they did a very good job. They hit their target with us. So, all right. So JDF is basically the 90 version of Henry Cavill. Yeah, yeah. And now, like I said, he was when he first got the role, he was 19, 20 years old or 21 years old. So he was like right at that area, and that's when they still had the teen magazines and the teen posters and all that stuff like that. And like I said, the women were in their mid 20s, college age women, and in their 30s and stuff, late 20s, watching that. They were buying the toys too. They would use, oh, I'm buying it for my kid. You know, he was he's an attractive guy, hot guy. I mean, he was, they looked all kind of normal, but he was the guy that, chick back. And even when they brought him in, the storyline was, oh, here he comes. It was cool, and they used him as a marketing. Henry Cavill's on another level, but for the mid 90s, if it wasn't a boy band, I mean, it was him. Jeebus. Hey guys, how you doing? How you doing, Jeebus? Mighty Rax. Will, did the Power Rangers comics ever cross over into DC and Marvel? I cannot remember. I know the Power Rangers and the Turtles recently crossed over, but I cannot remember. That was a long time ago. I can't remember. I don't have an answer for that, but I'm gonna guess that yes, but I don't recall they did, but I don't quote me there. How you doing, Chappie? Jimmy Snickers as a murder too. Yeah, I think he did have some issues there. There's another guy. That guy wrestled. He actually made it into late in his life though. I'm surprised he did. William, the reason why I said Eddie Guerrero, being a Latino heritage, he was the first heavyweight champion that was Latino and represented me on television. Yeah, he was. And that was a big moment, that WrestleMania 2000, the 2004, 2005, where he, he and Chris Benoit were champions. But yeah, um, he kind of paved the way for Latino wrestling. I mean, in general, there was a lot of other people that were around then. I mean, hell, going all the way back to Tito Santana, but he was the first one to ascend to that level of world champion. He was the first one to be the one that you know was the main event for events like SummerSlam, WrestleMania, all these other shows that he did. He was a breakthrough star, Latino. And he had been wrestling for almost 20 years. In fact, no, he had been wrestling for over 20 years. He'd been out there, but it wasn't until that moment. That was a huge, even though I wasn't watching a lot of WWE by then, because at that point, the product was pretty much 4 or 5 years into being trash for me. But I did watch those matches. I did watch Eddie Guerrero whenever he was on. I always watched Chavo Guerrero. I mean, back in the WCW days. And yeah, and that opened up not just the whole door as far as Latino wrestlers, but it opened up the door to the general public to the roots of Mexican wrestling. Now you have AAA, now you have MLW. You have a lot of things out there that are out there now that people know about, that wouldn't have known if it wouldn't been for people like Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Chavo Guerrero, Hector Garza. There's there's all kinds of guys out there. You know, a lot of the mask wrestlers that converted and took their mask off to come wrestle, to get that big money. So yeah, Eddie Guerrero was an icon, and he's 38 years old, was too young, but that lifestyle at that time was almost a sure death sentence. R.I.P. Yes, R.I.P. Adam Sandler. Like I said, I know a lot of you, a lot of us came together because the whole Snyder, the pursuit of Zack Snyder's Justice League, and sometimes not all of us, but sometimes people forget that cause, and that's not a cause, it's embodied in an entire mentality that just needs to be looked out for. And like I said, this is the one that we all know, and it sucks. Right? I mean, when she was 18, I think he's 18 when she killed herself, and who knows? Even with all the tools around you, there's still no guarantee that you're going to spot it and stop it. But let's try, I guess. So yeah, R.I.P. Adam Snyder. All right, Anthony Manzano. So thanks again for having your channel up late at night. I'm not suicidal or anything. That is good to hear. Thank you for telling me that, because I was hoping it wasn't going to. But thank God. But you being on and talking about comics makes my mind off of a friendly. But yeah, and whatever it is, because I know there are people out there that I watch that did that for me. John Campea show during the pandemic, I would have lost my damn mind if I didn't have the John Campea show to watch, to continue the conversation of these things. Guys like the Film Junkie, guys like you see me bring Chris Wong Swinson on. These were the guys that when we were going through all of that, these were the anchors. These were the people that I watched that helped me through. Poindexter Lounge. Poindexter Lounge was Enosh was on Film Junkie, and I would send in video comments. And then I found out he had a channel, and I would send those same comments to him, and that's how we hooked up. So I hope on the worst day that we ever have, that there's something that you watch, whatever it is, whether it's wrestling, whether it's listening to sports radio, whether it's watching the most silly, inane thing, that whatever it is that drags you across the finish line, that gets you there, do it. And if it's me, great. I take that as a badge of honor that I'm doing with somebody else. So many people have done for me, as far as just being there, just being consistent, just being there every day. I know that if I'm having a shitty day, it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, so-and-so is about to do their show. And then, that's that hour. That's that hour that they don't have to think about that. When we're doing the overnight shows, that's that 3 hours. That's why I always say I'm shepherding you through one day to the other. That day might have sucked, but guess what? We're getting on the ferry boat and we're moving into a new day. And let's see what that one has to offer. So thank you, Anthony. And like I said, I'm just trying to fill the role that so many people have filled for us, myself, and a lot of us out there. It's those guiding lights, those shows, those movies, those regularly scheduled distractions that sometimes make the difference, man. All right, Chappie. I'm definitely someone that have struggled with mental health and have faced their own demons, but lucky I've been going to a great psychologist, and that's truly helped me a lot. What he's saying is not just a couple of words he's typing on the screen. That is so important. First of all, he went and got help, and he's talking about it. So right there, by definition, anybody who's going through this, they're not alone. All right. And when he comes out on the other end, or when he gets as well as he needs to, he can spread that goodwill to somebody else. Everybody who makes it through this is a living, breathing example and proof. I call proof of life that there is an other side to whatever it is they're going through. Whatever especially if it's similar stuff, divorces, loss of a loved one, things like that. In these groups, and these counseling groups, and these sessions, a lot of these guys that are on these hotlines have gone through it. And somebody got them. Somebody got to them in time. They lost a loved one. They went through a divorce. They lost their job. They lost their career, or they just thought that they didn't mean anything. They went through that, and now they're on these hotlines, trying to bring someone else through. But when you have people in our society that are your normal Joes that have gone through it, and they're proof. They're proof that it does not have to end that way. So thank you for bringing that up, Chap. All right, the movie that bought that more forefront was the movie about Chris Kyle and Bradley Cooper. about the suicide rate amongst military veterans. Yeah, that was American Sniper. And I know a lot of guys, and it was not just the suicide was brought up permanently in that one, but it was just, did you see the mental state? By the time he was done, he was ready to go home. He was ready to go home. I mean, he had seen, especially in the SEAL community, in the SEAL and the Special Forces community, it's such a small, tight knit brotherhood. There's not that many people that you can talk to about the stuff. I mean, a SEAL is not going to come talk to me. I mean, we have the commonality and the brotherhood of being military, former military, and people who served in theater, but I'm not. I can't connect to the stress level and the stuff that he's dealt with. So, you know, a lot of those guys needed a place to go to get it out of their head, and they're still going through it. You know, there's a VA has counseling sessions for a lot of these guys, especially the guys that were in the heat, the guys that were in the line of fire. You know, those guys are going to spend the rest of their lives making sure everything's tightened up, so that, you know, it doesn't come back to haunt them. All right. I'm not in the military. No, that's fine. Like I said, the conversation we're having, I'm giving you from my point of view because that's the background I came from and the, you know, experiences I've had. But it is not just a military thing. It is a human thing. It is a you know, everyman thing. So, you know, we all deal with it. All right. Well, and I was reading somewhere recently, apparently the storyline from what Kind of Forever borrows some key points from Dark Reign and Dune Worm. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't a composite of a lot of different things. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. The main thing I'm looking forward with Marvel coming up is Secret Invasion. Once I get past Secret Invasion, that's when I'll start getting excited about anything else that that Marvel has coming up. Because you know how I feel about Marvel. There's just so much stuff out there that if you don't focus on what means something to you, you can get lost in a lot of that, the salad there. All right, 1990 for me. I was born August, specifically late August, so I'm not sure they came out 4 years after you were born. So Power Rangers, I think, first made their premiere in 1994, and that particular group, if I can recall correctly, ran for 2 seasons before, 2 or 3 seasons before I went on. All right, but it was good to see Bob Iger back again. Yeah, trust me, the stock prices will enjoy that tomorrow as well. All right, Juice, Juventud Guerrero. Wow, that guy, dude. There's some stories about that guy. Oof. When he got drunk and crazy, I remember when he was working for WCW, there was a lot of crazy stuff. He knew how to party, unfortunately. There's some crazy stuff about that guy. So, all right, guys, that is about it. I've been about an hour or so, and I wanted to touch on that. I wanted to not just touch on Jason Frank. I mean, that's a big story, but to use it to kind of unfortunately highlight this issue and then make it, you know, a little more okay for, if you want, for, you know, to put those numbers up there, but to do my little microscopic part of the world and say, hey, if you're going through stuff, there are resources out there for you. There are people who are further along in this process than you are, and that are coming out of the other side of it. And use those people, use those resources to get things fixed. All right, and there's nothing wrong with going to get fixed. There's nothing weak about going to get help. That actually shows you are smarter than the average bear. The fact that you know yourself enough to know something is wrong and that you need to get fixed. You are not weak. You are to be admired. You are heroic in that respect. And like I said, these guys are that have huge giant platforms that are talking about it right now. And that's why when people dismiss mental illness, you know, a lot of time I just want to choke them, because when you dismiss it, you make it harder for people to come out and deal with the issue or to go get help, because you are putting the stigma that a lot of people are working so hard to lift. And lifting that stigma is literally going to save people's lives. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not over exaggerating. Lifting that stigma and making it okay to get fixed is literally going to say, I don't know how many, but I'm guessing it's going to be a lot more than not saying anything at all. So, all right, guys. One more question, and then I'm trying to get dry out of there. Maybe not as bad as Kevin Tishara, but I personally don't think that Bob Chapek knew how to run the studio. No, you were 100% correct. He wasn't a studio head. He was not a studio head. He was an upper exec. Tishihara it was just a disconnected knucklehead, in my opinion. So, all right. So let's see, William, when you were in the military, let's say you went to a bar and you bumped into either the Big Samoans, specifically the Wild Samoans. Would you be dumb enough to? No, I've actually met them. And I was at an event where they were at, and no, there's no way in hell I fuck with those guys. There's not too many wrestlers I would fuck with at all. All right. Even the ones that are smaller than me. Yeah, what they do is choreograph, but they're can be pretty dangerous. I'm not gonna attack. And I would see guys who would do that shit. They'd be fucking with people. They would be. Listen, when you go to a show and you scream in the crowd, that's part of the game. That's fine. And some heckling, they're public personas. But when you start saying some of the disrespectful things about wives and all the personal issues that you may have found out on the internet, that's where I draw the line. I look around and I'm like, dude, if you come over this railing and beat your ass, what would you expect? But in a bar situation, nah. I'm the kind of guy who doesn't antagonize anybody anywhere. I come in and I go. I try to blend into things and I go. I'm not for public consumption. So if I met a wrestler, the most harm that I would cause to that wrestler, because I would take up all of his time, especially if it's a wrestler I like. Hell, heaven forbid I ran into Ric Flair. Shit, he may not be able to get on his flight or get out of the restaurant because I would be like fanboying on him. So, but no, I met the Samoans. I've met Sika Afi, and the Samoan SWAT team too. No, don't fuck with those guys. They are as scary looking in person as they were in on the screen, and you just got that. Don't mess with these guys, So yeah. All right, to this day, it's still baffling me why they hired somebody like Kevin Tishihara, who worked at a amusement park company, and Toby Emmerich, who worked at the music industry to run the studios beyond me. That was bad upper management, and it's plagued Warner Brothers since the mid '90s. One of the as a wrestling geek, one of the main casualties of their stupidity was after the AOL Time Warner merger, and Ted Turner lost control of WCW. If Ted Turner had been in control of WCW, WCW would still be here to this day. He may not own it, but he would have not set up a bullshit deal that Jamie Kellner did with Vince McMahon, selling the company, devaluing the company. Most of the big contracts didn't even come over. To me, I've always considered that, my opinion is that was a fraudulent sale. But that was what AOL Time Warner did. And so they did stupid shit like that all the way through the 90s and, all the way through the 2000s. And then they were bought by AT&T. And AT&T never had any intention on making it a valuable studio. They just wanted to use their networks as a part of a way, because they bought DirecTV. So they're making a quality product for Warner Brothers Films or DC was never at the top of their priority, and it showed in the people that they hired. I think for the first time, with all these purchases and mergers, we're actually in a place now where the person running it, you could disagree with some of the stuff he does, but he actually has a direct regard for the product he's putting out. So yeah, I can see how it happened. You can do amazing stupid shit with mismanagement. You can do any dumb shit in the world with mismanagement. There's nothing you can't fuck up with bad management. Very good stream, was very important. Yeah, very important one. I'm going to try to do my best with my little handful of followers and watchers to normalize some of these things that people internalize, and who knows. They always say if there's one person that listens in and changes course, then it's worth it. So hopefully, like I said, I can this platform's got to be used for some positive stuff. I know people stream about other people. I know people stream about other YouTubers. A lot of people stream about things that make them miserable. I try to stream about things that make us happy and give you a break from all that. But at the same time, to try to bring something positive. I don't think there's anything more positive I can bring to the public forum right now than at least making available numbers and stuff like that, and telling somebody, dude, if you're broke, go get fixed. I don't think that there's anything other than raising money for cancer and things like that, and that's something I hope to do, or raising money for raising money and funds like that. But you know what? Money can only do so much. It's free to make the connection to somebody who may be on that edge. All right, colonizer. I'll beat the crap out of James Edwards. Okay, make sure you film that, Jeebus, when you do it. I want to see that. Bots. Oh well. Let me see if did I get those. Hold on. It's been a while since I had bots. Okay, cool. All right, somebody got it. Cool. Thank you, moderators, for that. I can't always see how you guys doing. Hey, another one from down under. How you doing, Drago? Just about to wrap it up. Because like I said, I only wanted to go an hour. Because I thought it was important to get on tonight. Even I was going to get on before we knew this, but I'm always on that fence. Do I have anything to talk about? But when this happened, we talked about our normal stuff. We talked about Chapek, we talked about stories and stuff like that. But I just no way. I think I would be derelict in my YouTube duties if I didn't at least provide a forum, especially this time at night when a lot of you guys are up thinking about a lot of shit. And at the end of the day, it makes sense that why these guys lost. Yeah, dude, you and all the people that were trying to defend them, and I'm like, what are you doing? All right, guys, thank you for joining us. Thank you for adding questions, adding your experiences, and adding just by watching. And hopefully, we made some type of difference tonight as far as how we talk about this stuff. And we talked about some other topics as well. It wasn't all doom and gloom, but like I said, it is the world we live in. So when we do open mics, you guys are welcome to bring in all kinds of other stuff, rumors, speculations. I try to handle it in the best way possible because I can't always answer the questions because I'm not getting it from people, as far as that goes, and scoopers, how we feel about those times. But yeah, I try to have a general conversation, same conversation I would have if you were standing in the center of the Sci-Fi Center. So hope we achieved that. And like I said, have as happy as you possibly can Monday. Hey, just remember, it's Thanksgiving. And even on the worst day, you can look around and just take inventory of everything and everyone around you. Even on your worst day, is it really that bad? Is it really that bad? And if you think it is, then that's when you need to go dial 988. Not just that, but you need to talk to somebody in general and let them take inventory on what you got. Let them tell you it's really that bad. All right, guys. Good night, and I will most likely see you tomorrow night. Hopefully, with some better topics, more uplifting topics, and hopefully with some good news as we head on into the holiday season. So let me go ahead and get my little outro up. I love my outro. All right, guys. Bye.